All right. Good evening, Boris. Thank you for joining us to follow up with your questionnaire for your city council candidacy. The first question we had about healthcare was, I see you had mentioned you were interested in strengthening New York health and hospitals. We were wondering what your position was on the New York Health Act, the New York State legislature bill that would provide a Medicare for all type plan for all New Yorkers.
So I actually support a federal Medicare for all, meaning I believe it should be done on the federal level. It should be, this is the only industrialized country in the world where people go bankrupt because they get sick, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I will, confirm that I didn't have health insurance between the time I was in college and between my first job, and that was before Obamacare. I'm old enough. So I can confirm that this is a major problem. I am not sure if the state level is really the solution. I'll be honest, my union, which is the DC 37, has been literally pushing us nonstop to not support it because they feel like that the collective bargaining agreements will suffer as a result, etc. But I ideologically support it. I support a universal healthcare option on a federal level. I went to that presentation we had on Newkirk and Payos when we had the whole team, the doctor, I forgot his name, he was an older gentleman. And I was like, right, this is great. But the New York Health Act, in my opinion, is that my time? No, okay.
No, someone else joined.
Yeah, so I ideologically support it, but because so many unions feel like it hurts them on collective and bargaining, and they'll be used as a tool to hurt union movement, that's the part that I actually am a little bit hesitant with. But ideologically, I support it, and I believe now with the federal government the way it is, now something of the sort will happen. We're the closest we've ever been.
I actually wanted to ask a follow-up question.
Yeah,
so
sure.
The city is facing a potential budget shortfall, and many DC 37 members might be laid off, so they would lose access to their health care as a result of that. And there's also talk that they might have to end up paying a premium for their health care. So if these things did come to pass, would you more strongly consider supporting the New York Health Act?
Yeah, I would. And I actually would support the New York Health Act if they took out the whole role of unions in it, meaning the whole fact that there's that's part of the discussion. If they just said, you know what, we're going to tax Jeff Bezos and Jeff Bezos types more, and meaning just don't have the unions part of the discussion. And because this is what we've seen a lot, particularly by this governor, where he makes one union fight another union, where we've seen that with what's it called, the Amazon deal, where they said, oh, we're going to have 32BJ comes out for the New York Building Congress and its associated sister unions like all the trades, they're for it. And then you have the majority, especially the more progressive unions, against it. Again, now they're fighting it. This is exactly what Cuomo wants. He wants the labor movement to be divided. So I feel like we're falling into the trap, even with the New York Health Act, that you have, and we already fell into it, meaning this is it, that here I am, someone that supports something, that's a member of labor, that sees the need for it, then is put in a position because the union's bargaining power is, put on the line. Andrew Cuomo has a lot of Scott Walker-like tendencies, unfortunately. And in my opinion, he's using the New York Health Act, and he's using it to weaken labor. So that's my hesitation with it. It's meaning, I ideologically, I'm on board with it. Overall, I'm on board with it. But it's the fact that the union bargaining powers are somehow affected to it. That's the 5% of me. And I can tell you, yes, I support all 100%, and that's it. But I'm being honest. That's take out the union bargaining part, and then I'm on board with it.
Also, I believe in our eagerness to get started on time, we had not done an introduction. So, Boris, if you had wanted to
Oh, sure.
introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your campaign, that would be great. Thank you.
So I guess a little background. My name is Boris Noble. I'm a candidate for City Council in the 48th Council District, currently held by the term-limited Chaim Deutsch. I'm basically, besides being born in Ukraine, a country that's been in the news a lot for the wrong reasons, the past year, I've been living in Brooklyn my whole life, in more or less this area, basically from Kensington and on. I actually attended PS 179 on Cortellia Road and East Second as a kid. That was my first, and that was where I did my poll watching for Doug Schneider. Full circle. So I grew up here. Then I went to yeshiva. Actually, I graduated from yeshiva. I went to Brooklyn College subsequently, where I got my bachelor's. I went to the new school, the Milano, the new school for policy analysis. I didn't end up graduating from there. I ended up graduating in Brooklyn College, and I got my master's in political science. Then I worked in a local nonprofit called Midwood Development Corporation. They're still around on Avenue M and East 14th, where I developed a foreclosure prevention program under the Obama era thing called HEMP, Home Affordable Mortgage Modification Program, HEMP. I developed that primarily in this area, as well as a little bit further out in Canarsie and Bed-Stuy, I guess in two different directions. So I worked there for 5 years. In the meantime, wrote my thesis on BIDs, business improvement districts, the positives and the negatives. Then subsequently, after that, worked 5 years, worked for Marty Markowitz, the Brooklyn Borough President, as his housing policy advisor, as well as his Jewish and Russian-speaking liaison, although the second and third role didn't give me any more income. And Mr. Markowitz did say he will endorse me. So that is something that I am looking forward to. He's one of the few politicians that elicit a good reaction from almost everybody, and that's rare in the world nowadays. So I worked there for 2.5 years until the current borough president came. After that, I left. I went to work where I am working now at HRA, Human Resources Administration, as an analyst. Then I eventually got promoted to a director of rapid rehousing, where I oversee something called a three-quarter house task force, which is basically a very sad situation where you have people released from a penitentiary system, either on the state level or Rikers, that have nowhere to go. Then they end up in these really shady, really shoddy houses, we'll call them, where you have 8, it's basically always males, but sometimes you have females, but 8 unrelated adults living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And the city is paying for it. So that's the most egregious part about it. So I've been running that task force. We're closing down these places. At this point, we're down to basically everybody that wanted to leave these places have left. There are some people that don't refuse to leave. So, it is what it is. But at this point, we've moved 850 people out of these really decrepit conditions. And now I oversee 18 shelters for the city of New York in my day job. Mainly in hotels. I have my issues, with how hotels are used as shelters. It's not ideal, but I'm not happy with all the stigmatization we see about the homeless or unsheltered, in my opinion. So that's, what my background, married with 3 kids. I'm a fluent Russian speaker, and I'm Orthodox Jew. So those are the 2 biggest demographics in this district. Those are fairly conservative populations. I will note that Trump got 67% of the vote this past November in the 48th Council District. So that's something that is a challenge for any Democrat to have to recognize. Now, the truth is, it was a presidential election. Come 2021, it won't be a presidential election. So there'll be a more depressed Republican turnout. But even so, and I've been meeting with rabbinic figures here in Brooklyn. In fact, I had 2 phone calls and a Zoom this morning between my dealing with my being hacked with prominent rabbis in the district who said they will support me in my candidacy. I've been featured on Russian television, and on every Friday I go to a different mosque in the district for Juma prayers. I already got the whole thing, taking off my shoes, coming in, the whole thing's already been natural to me. And I have a couple of Chinese speakers that are helping me with the Chinese population along Sheepshead Bay Avenue U in particular as well. So we have a pretty robust operation. We did qualify for matching funds. Of course, we're always fundraising, as any politician is. They never stop fundraising. But we've qualified for matching funds, and that's something I'm very proud about. And I'm starting to get union endorsements. And Local 237, which is the union that represents housing workers, NYCHA workers, as well as shelter security guards. That's the other position that they represent. In New York City, they have Long Island operation as well, has endorsed me. They haven't made it official yet, but they told me on Friday that they've endorsed me. And I'm waiting in a couple of others in the coming week. So that's a summary. I used to be an ex-co of this group. I obviously, for conflict of interest reasons, I don't know if I resigned or I just didn't get renominated. So I feel like I know everybody there, at least on a first name basis.
So I believe Ellen had a question next.
Oh yeah, I see chats. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Hi, Boris.
Hi.
So my question has to do with the pandemic. In your questionnaire, you mentioned that you would address it by encouraging residents to wear masks. But I'm wondering how you would go about that and what you would do if you get population in your district who refuses, defies the requirements to wear masks and not to gather in large groups. How would you address that?
So just today, I was actually in services for afternoon services in a congregation on Avenue P and Ocean Parkway, which I've actually never attended before. It was actually my first time there. And surprisingly, 3/4 of the people had masks. Now, some of them wearing it here, some of them wearing here, whatever it is, how people are. Why? Because their rabbinic figure. Now, let me go back. This is a type of congregation where it's more like a train station. People are coming and going for different services all through the day, but they have a sign that said, "You are not welcome here if you don't wear a mask." And yet, 1/4 of the people were not wearing a mask. So they actually have an enforcement system where they actually ask people to leave. And I actually saw 2 gentlemen asked to leave today. So it's hard to enforce it. You're not going to put people in jail for it, but it comes to a point where I believe having people of authority push for it. And in fact, all the rabbinic figures that I met with today have been very adamant that, at least indoors, I'm not talking about outdoors, but they've adamantly said indoors people must wear masks. In our congregations, people wear masks, and if they don't like it, we ask them to leave, and that's it. So I think having people of authority that are not seen as compromised or sold out, if you will, as stating it and publicizing it, and that's where the issue is that, did you know that this individual pushed for it, and then give cases of unfortunate situations where you had young people that are healthy that died, that literally died. So mask work. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it sucks. I also sweat. I'm not happy about it either. Don't get me wrong. Meaning acknowledge the fact that it's not an ideal. I think that's where people feel like it's being made into something like, oh, it's natural. No, it's not natural. It's uncomfortable. But this is what has to happen, at least for the foreseeable future. And have people of authority publicize it. And I feel like if the city really wanted to spend their money well in this community, take out an ad in a paper, local paper. And these rabbinic figures would do it for free, meaning they don't want to get anything out of it. They would actually, the 4 of them would come in with their pictures with their mask, and the city put an ad. What does it cost? $1,000? It would work. It would work 100%. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it would work for 3/4 for sure, and more. And the ones that wouldn't be doing it, they'd always be conscious of it. Oh, I'm not doing it. So There's some people that just, one of my opponents, Heshi Tischler, he became famous for fighting it. I mean, that's his claim to fame. Literally burning masks in Borough Park. That's literally his claim to fame. So, so there'll always be somebody that that opposes it. But I think with that type of approach, we'll have much more compliance, at least indoors. Everybody's on mute.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. Did anyone have an additional question? Because if not, I have one. All right, so local district leader Lori Maslow had recently made racist statements against Chinese Americans regarding coronavirus. She has been asked to resign from her district leader post as a result of these and other racially insensitive comments. At this time, she has resigned from another formal position within the party, but not the district leader. Would you encourage her to resign? And
She should
what are your
resign.
thoughts on this?
Yes, she should. She's it's one thing she said something once, in a tweet. Sometimes you can say something that can be misconstrued. It can be kind of, misunderstood. One time anyone can make a mistake, especially, when you tweet, doing it at night. But first of all, she doubled down on it, number one. And second of all, then her history of previous tweets came out, So if it was a one-time thing that was, technically misconstrued, I could see the case, so to speak, for her to not resign. Additionally, the district that she represents, the third largest demographic there is actually Chinese. I mean, easily 15% of the 41st Assembly District is Chinese. So it's egregious. And I tell people, you could be talking about Israel government policy, for better or worse, and then say, I hate the Israeli government so much that I'm not getting bagel and lox, because that's a stereotypical Jewish food, like, whoa, that's like, that's overboard, Or saying I won't eat hummus or falafel. That's like meaning you're taking a government policy talk and then saying it, I don't want these people or these people's foods around me. That's crazy. I will also note that my opponent, Maria Mark, is the president of that club, of the 41st Assembly District. So I am familiar with the Maslows. I'm familiar with that club quite well. I mean, I've been in it a few times, not so much, maybe 3-4 times in my life, mainly in helping Hakeem Jeffries get elected, actually, back in the day, against Charles Barron, I should note. So I don't think she can continue in this role in a positive manner. In fact, I almost find it funny that they don't want her to resign, because now she'll be primaried and that person will lose, meaning the party itself will be better off having her resign. Then they could actually put one of their own people on it, because of county committee, as you know how that works. So I almost find it like suicidal that they don't want her to resign, which is even more egregious. That I understand if you don't want to resign because you don't want to lose the seat. Fine, I can understand that, but they're not even facing that. So I've actually spoken to 2 Chinese leaders actually in the past week about this. And I said, one of them wasn't even aware of it, surprisingly. The other one was just like, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe this is not a bigger issue, so to speak. And I said, just based on those tweets alone, she's compromised and can't, how is she going to represent an area that's easily 50% Chinese? So yeah, I stand clearly on that one.
All right, thank you. So if anyone else has a question, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
I did see unions don't oppose it on federal level. The
Yeah, that's a whole discussion we'll have
Yeah,
in the internal New York
So,
Health Act group if you
right.
have a chance.
So they don't oppose it. You know, I am I'm a kind of a policy wonk. So, all
Well,
right,
hold
what are the
on.
best
David
parts?
has all right, David
What are
Karopkin
the-
has a question, and then we will cut for time, although we will email you if we get further questions. David, go ahead. Oh. David wanted to know what were the best parks in the 48th.
So interesting, Colbert Park is not technically in the 48th, but it's not the best park. I would say the best park is Manhattan Beach Park. It's on Oriental Boulevard. It's literally by the beach. It has a palm tree, kind of, you know, with the water coming out of it. So in the summer, the kids love it. And they can wash their feet in it after the beach. I know it's hard to believe about the summer in this type of weather, but it's a very, I think that's the best park. I mean, I wish I went there as a kid. And I take my kids there fairly regularly in the summer, about once a week. And because, you know, Manhattan Beach is great. You could actually park there during the week. And that's, you know, my opinion, that's the best park in the 48th.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. We will put this on YouTube. Anyone with further questions can feel free to reach out to us or Boris's campaign. Thank you again for your time.
All right, thank you. Take care then.